Hey there, everybody. My name is Colin McAuley, and if you were unlucky enough to miss my awesome presentation, then I have gone through it here for you and uploaded it so you can virtually be there in the room. Um, my presentation was titled Creating a Self-Grading Quiz Using Google Forms, but I really could also have called it Visualizing Data and talking about after you do a form, you get all this data, what do you do with it? Now, where I would start, all my resources I uploaded to a folder in Google Docs, and you can get there by going bit.ly/TDSB and then GAFE. You see GAFE a lot. It stands for Google Apps for Education. So all my stuff that I've uploaded and resources are going to be found in there. And of course, the event the event website is bit.ly TDSB Google Camp, where all the links to all the presentations and the presenters and all the resources, you can find it there. So here's the agenda for today. We're going to start off talking about forms and like why would you use it or have you ever used it? And of course, we're going to fill out a form. Then we're going to take a look at visualizing some data, one way to visualize some of the data you get from a form, and we're going to fill out a form. And finally, we're going to make that self-grading test that I promised. And to do that, as you can imagine, we are going to fill out a form. And then throughout the session, well, hopefully we're going to do a lot of talking. I'm going to give you some time, hopefully, to work on some forms if you don't know about how to do that or if you want to check that out. And also we'll look at some add-ons and what they are as well. So first of all, a little bit about me. Here's my awesome family. I teach at Grenoble Public School. It's kind of a high ESL population school, and normally I do media literacy and science there. I'm a digital lead learner. I've been teaching about 20 years. Wow, a long time. And at my school, we've got about 110 of the HP notebooks. Now, when I heard that all these notebooks were coming, kind of a mixed blessing. I did write proposals to get them, but at the same time, I'm a real Apple fanboy, so the idea of the PCs coming was not exactly so great for me. However, what really turned the corner for me was the use of Google Docs with my students. Using Google Docs with students is just so incredibly easy that it really sold me. The collaboration, all that goodness you're going to hear about today. I'm a real Google Docs supporter now for sure. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is talk about have you ever used a Google Doc form before in your classroom? And I'm going to have the participants go to a form and kind of fill that out. So I'm going to skip over that for now, but I'm going to go talk about in general the forms. Now, there's two parts to a form. The front end, and I'm using the Wizard of Oz here, which is basically what the people see. But behind that, there's the back end, all the guts about what people don't see. Now, the front end is where you're creating the form, and it's the web form, the beautiful web form that ends up that people fill in. And then on the back end, you have the responses, which get tabulated or in a spreadsheet. So here's what creating the form looks like when you start. And here's the back end. So you can see the back end, you might end up with lots of people lots of students filling in data and tons of answers. And how do you make sense of all that? And that's kind of what my presentation hopefully is going to be about. Okay, so when you create a form, you go to create, you right away Google Docs will automatically make a spreadsheet for you to hold the responses, and that's kind of done automatically. So that's usually a good thing. You make the form, it makes the container, the back end, automatically for you. For example, if you're doing a test on rocks, it will make a rocks responses spreadsheet for you. Now, one thing you have to know is that you also can choose. It's great that it automatically does this for you, but if you have a specific spreadsheet you want to use or a specific name for a spreadsheet, you can actually choose that. Now that'll be important later on, but just remember it for now that you can actually choose where the responses go. Okay. Now when I do it, if I want to actually choose, I usually give the name target, and that for me means that the responses are going to go into this particular target spreadsheet. Okay, so at this point what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump out of this presentation and I'm going to go in to my Google Drive and go to where all the resources are, and I'm going to have people in the room fill out a form, and it looks something the form looks like this. This is what I see as I've made the form, and the live form looks like this, and people are going to fill that out. Okay, and one of the interesting things is I've embedded photos, I've embedded video, and a lot of EKO stuff I stuck in there, and just as an example to gather some data. Okay, now what'll happen is when that's all done, I will end up with some responses. So far, I've only got 3 because I've done it 3 times. Now what I want to do for this activity is show people how to visualize some of the data. And as you can see here, I've already done that. Okay, here's an embarrassing bit of information. My middle name is actually Mary. I'm Irish. My parents wanted to mess me up, and so it's a long story, but my middle name is actually Mary. So if you answered Mary, I formatted this column to give a green for Mary. But if you did any other answer, you're going to see a red part. Now to do that, you do that with conditional formatting. So let me show you how to quickly do that. The answer here is 63. So if I go up to this little drop down arrow, I can go to conditional formatting, and I can say if the text, if the cell contains number 63, then the background can be green. I'm going to add another rule. If the text does not contain 63, so any other answer, then I'm going to do the background color to be a light red, and I'm going to save the rule. And as you can see, it starts formatting that. Now what I'm going to do is I am going to have the participants go through and finish the rest of these columns. Why would you do that? And obviously this will be more effective with lots of data. It gives you a very quick visualization of which questions your students are having trouble with. It doesn't necessarily identify which kids, although when you look left and right, if you see a lot of green, they're doing okay. If you see a lot of red, they're in trouble. The other thing you could look at, of course, is in the form, you can go to show summary of the responses. And this gives you kind of pie graphs. It shows you how your kids are doing in different areas in a general sense. So, oh boy, your kids really need a lot of work on this, or they seem to get that. Now again, with more responses, this will be more valid, but that kind of gives you the idea of what you can do with visualizing data in a form. Let's jump back to the presentation. So this is the form I'm going to have people fill out. And we'll talk about the responses. Now, what I want to talk about now is multiple choice. The things that I'm showing you really work best with multiple choice. Even if you do short answer, like for example, what color is the sky? And you want your students to write in blue. This sort of stuff works only when they write exactly blue. Anyone writes BLU, it'll be marked wrong because it's not spelled perfectly. Multiple choice is really the way to go for doing this kind of work with respect to being able to work with the data in the way I'm showing. But I also know that multiple choice has some disadvantages. You know, right now we're really into inquiry and STEM and all those things, and that warm and fuzzy kind of learning. But multiple choice doesn't really fit in there, really. Also, multiple choice can be very content driven, very facts, you know, and a lot of students, you know, we're trying to teach maybe perhaps creativity or thinking, and not always so content specific driven. And it might kind of have an old school feel to it, and it's not really great assessment of learning. Like hopefully you're not doing a multiple choice for your final evaluation, final assessment. That would not be a good thing. However, there are some advantages to do this, and it's very specific. First of all, it can be very quick. Students can fill out the form, you can get the results super quick. And a lot of EKO still has multiple choice. So there is a valid way, a reason of doing it this way, having kids practice these particular these skills. And it's pretty good for assessment as learning. So at the very beginning, you want to try to figure out where your kids are, quick multiple choice on a certain topic, and it gives you a good ballpark about where they are. And it's kind of, I would say so-so for assessment for learning. Not a lot of feedback going in, except when they get their marks. So that's just kind of my thing about multiple choice. Okay. We talked about visualization already. Okay. Now I'm going to go to another part, which has to do with making the final, making a self-grading test. Now, when Google Docs was made, it has a certain amount of functionality built in, and additional functionality, additional things you can do come through the idea of a script. A script is like a little tiny program that can run inside a Google Doc and do something. Just a little bit of extra options for you. Now, I have this idea of evolution here because we have kind of evolved, or Google Docs has evolved from the idea of adding scripts to kind of adding what are now called add-ons. And that's a really recent thing that's happened. So what we used to call a script has now, a lot of scripts are being ported over to what's called an add-on. And the TDSB is usually somewhere in the middle of this evolution. When Google turns something on quickly, we don't always seem to jump on board right away. It seems to come a little bit later for us occasionally. So we're usually somewhere in the middle. Now this is important because the add-on I'm going to show you started out as a script. So you have to know that you can still use it as a script, but it's become an add-on. And getting it as an add-on seems to be a much better way to go. Okay? And the one that I'm going to talk about to make these self-grade tests is called Flubaroo. Okay? It's an add-on. Ooh. Here's a video about what add-ons are. I'm going to skip over it for now. But Google has made a video explaining what the add-ons are for added functionality. So what I'm going to ask my group to do now is to create a spreadsheet and check out some add-ons. So this is how you of course could do that. I'm going to go to my Google Drive quickly, and I'm going to create a spreadsheet. Now as soon as I do the spreadsheet, it doesn't have a name yet, I've got this menu for add-ons. Now I already have some, but what you do if you want to get an add-on, you go to get add-ons. And then there are some that are listed in here. A lot of business related ones, Avery labels and things like that. But the one I'm going to use is Flubaroo. Okay, and you can also take a look at the education ones. There's 4 listed here. So what you're going to do is click on Flubaroo, and you're going to, I've already installed it, but you're going to go through the process of installing. It asks for some permissions and things like that. And when you're all done, the add-on will be inside here and ready to go. Okay, so that's how you get an add-on. That's how you add this functionality to your spreadsheet. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is to show you how Flubaroo works. Okay, I'm going to go back out for a second to my drive, and inside here I've left a test I'm going to have the group do on rocks and minerals. Now of course they will not know that much probably about rocks and minerals, and I'll be able to score their results. But what I've also got for you is some sample data that you can play around with. This is sample data from my classroom. I removed my students' names so that you don't know who's who. But when you open it up, you'll see a whole bunch of data here. So what I've done is here's some sample data for you to use to test out Flubaroo. Let's pretend that this is your class's work. You can see there's a lot of answers here. It's kind of hard to figure out who's done what. What I would recommend for you to do is go to File. Because I own this and I'm letting you look at it, I don't think you're going to be able to work with it. So you need to go to File and make a copy of it. And when you make a copy, it adds it to your drive, and now you own this. You can do whatever you want with it. But my copy is left intact. So I'm done. I'm going to go to Add-on and I'm going to say, go to Flubaroo and I'm going to grade the assignment. It starts working. And it looks at the different columns on top to figure out, which are the questions and which are the kids' names. So it knows that the username is where the usernames are, and it looks at all the questions. Now it's giving each question by default 1 point, but if you thought there was different amounts for different multiple choice, then you could change that. So I say continue. Then it's saying, okay, I've got all these students' work. Which one is the right response? This is where you go through. You've already graded the test. You've already done the test. You hopefully have got it right. It's very important that you answer all the questions. And you actually do get it right. A couple of times I've made a wrong thing, and then when it grades it, it's not accurate. So make sure you've done a good job on that. And I'm going to say continue. And it's starting to grade the work. And away it's going. So now I can view the grades. So a couple of things. There was 34 questions. The average on my test of my students was 22, not so great. And there's 33 kids did the test, and the number of people who scored low was 11. So everything here in red is a student who scored low. And by low, I think they're talking maybe, looks like under 70%. So lots of students scored what they're calling low. Also, for my questions, it's highlighting in yellow-orange which questions kids did poorly on. Now, this was based on a rock video. So I noticed that as I went along in the video later, that kids were not getting a lot of the data. Maybe they made notes early on really well, but some of the examples on the end were not so great. So here's the total points. Here's the percentage. So it's marked it all for me. I've got the students. I just changed these student names to numbers just to be illustrative. And if I go up to Flubaroo again, I can email the grades to those kids. And they'll get an email with the grades from their tests. That's kind of cool, I think. Now here's, if I view the report, let's take a look at that. It tells me kind of how my kids are doing based on that histogram. So that, in a nutshell, is how Flubaroo takes a ton of data and kind of squishes it down so that you can visualize it easier. Here's where all the student submissions are, and on this sheet is where the results are. I think it's pretty cool. Very specific, but still pretty cool. Okay, let's go through and see if there's anything else in my presentation. Here's one thing I find though, when I don't know if it's just within the TDSB, but when I actually make a form and it automatically makes a spreadsheet for me, sometimes I find that the add-ons thing is missing. And I kind of have to do it like it's a script, like the old way. So what I do in that case is I just kind of make my own target spreadsheet, and I'm able to then direct the questions to that particular target. And the way I do that is, let's take a look at a form. Here's a form. So sometimes I see the problem when I go to create and I make a form within the TDSB. And let's just quickly do a quick form of nothing. There we are. Option, go to the live form and submit it. So now when I come back here, I've got one response, and I can say choose the response destination. And normally it'll automatically make that spreadsheet for me, and I just say create. So when I go to view the responses though, the problem is the add-on is not here. The add-ons menu is not here. However, there's tools here where I can go get Flubaroo as a script. I don't find that is nearly as handy. It will work, but the add-on is a little smoother. So let's go back to edit the form. And here's where I can go to responses. I can change the response. So instead of it doing this automatic thing, I can choose to have it go to a different spreadsheet that I've made separately. And when you make a spreadsheet separately, the add-ons is always there. So I can just click something that I know I've made before. Maybe I put the word target in there, and it'll automatically have the add-on ready to go. It's just a little bit of a glitch. Just kind of have to watch out for that. I'm going to stop there. That is my virtual presentation, and I hope you enjoyed it. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.